Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Allie Dahl and Peter Hostrasser. What is happening, Allie? We had a great guest last week with TJ. We're going to unpack that today. So we're kind of like amped up. I don't know. I feel amped up.
I 100% feel amped up. I just feel encouraged. And about being a planner.
Yeah.
Start like I feel vindicated in some ways, but in a good way for educators who are planners. Like I feel like everything TJ talked about was like the importance of having a plan. And
Right.
like, okay, if you're an educator, you're probably a planner. And so like you will love that episode for so many reasons because like we can help. We have a huge opportunity at any level. What he talked about, you can implement,
Hmm.
like to help students plan their future. And the resources that are coming out around like the work that he's talking about in terms of career and college readiness is incredible. And I am just beyond stoked of where like his work and this type of work and how it can really disrupt education. So I'm just like feeling really, really, really encouraged by what he said. And in terms of the planning aspect, he just like literally said something I've wanted someone on the podcast to say for so long. And it's like, if you don't have a plan,
Yeah.
okay, right, wait for it, you're going to be poor. Like,
Yeah. You're going to be
like,
poor.
that's what he said. Go back.
Yeah. I think when viable, I'm going to go back to my notes here. We had a lot of conversation, by the way, listeners, that happened off of that podcast. And sometimes I just wish I would like sneak in and like do like a post podcast. Maybe we'll do like a live sessions or something. I don't know, but like there's something there about like the conversations after the conversation. So, and that's kind of why we do the
Don't hit
unpack,
stop.
right? Yeah.
I think you should just not hit end recording. You can cut it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Just kind of sneak people in there. Some people will say, won't feel comfortable saying some things on the podcast, and I don't think we're gonna like unveil anything there. But it really kind of went into a viable post-secondary plan, right? And if you don't have, legitimately, he did say, if you don't have a viable post-secondary plan, you're going to be poor. And he's not wrong. I mean, and I think that like we one of the it was, I don't know if it was on camera or off camera, but the conversation that we had about, it's and I've had this conversation with other innovative educators about like, you know what, right? This is, everything's going to be okay thing is not really the truth, right? If you're just gonna like, if we're just gonna continue to chase you in education, chase the A for you, chase the test score for you and things are not going to be okay. We're actually creating poor people, and I just love that about TJ. I think when I sat down next to him at the ACT conference, he exuded that right away, and I was like, "Oh, wait, this is somebody we need to talk to." So I just love that viable post-secondary plan, and I really love the way that he said college, right? You need to go to college, which can be and is actually, even in military, there is college courses there. Even in trades, there are college courses there. Even in boot camps, there are college. It's school, right? You have to go to school. And if you don't like school right now, well, kind of that's where we need to change the system. But and also if you don't like, you got to find a school that you like and a way of learning. And that's the hustle right now for people who are in this gap. I think, man, there's just so much to unpack here. I'm just so excited about it.
Yes, and like let's go back to how he started with his journey. He was
Yeah.
like in the restaurant business, and he talked about how he was given like 14 weeks. I actually knew someone in college who did similar work
Hmm.
for Ruby Tuesdays.
Oh,
They would
Ruby
go in.
Tuesdays.
I know
Used to
what a
have a
great
great like grilled cheese sandwich, I think, back in.
salad bar.
Yes, the salad was awesome. Yes.
I know the croutons, and But like, I guess not all Ruby Tuesdays were like tip top shape and making money and
Hmm.
doing the things that they were needed to do. And so he was like in this role where he had 14 weeks, live out of a hotel, and he would just like transform the restaurant and get it like better in some kind of way. And so
Sure.
he was also in the educational system. And his first principal job, he talked about how he was given a year, which felt
Hmm.
like a lot of time, but in education, it's not. But he did make changes, and he really emphasized like the basics. And I think once you get a school culture and a team in place and people on board with the culture, and we've heard this before on the podcast, he just worded it in a different way. Like the sky's the limit of what you can do,
Hmm.
right? So it's like, I love that he shared that he took a school that wasn't performing according to whatever make believe standards there are, but at the end of the day, it wasn't performing. So there's this inequity. He wasn't working at a top tier school district at like the beginning of his school leader career, but used that and used his experiences to, like, I would say, disrupt that school's
Hmm.
trajectory. And there's so much power in that. Like, and I'm encouraged saying that because he did it in a year. He didn't lose his job. He like then went to work there for a long time and like moved up the ranks, so to speak.
Hmm.
So there is an opportunity for a school leader or a community to feel like, if you're feeling exasperated, like we are failing, quote unquote, like getting the right team in place and the right people in place can transform a system.
Right.
I think that's like he speaks about it and he gives a lot of resources now. Like now he's even more global than
Right.
what he was. He just keeps growing in the work that he's doing to transform school leadership and school culture in order to disrupt the system.
Hmm.
He wouldn't necessarily use those words, but like what he's talking about in our minds is very disruptive because the system isn't working for so many students. And it comes down to a lot of the basics, a lot of accountability, um, a strong team, strong leadership, and like you really can make transformations in a year or less. Like it's
Right.
possible. I loved hearing that. I loved hearing like he wasn't just, like if it was at like my school district that I worked at, I mean, it was like a top school district in Missouri. I mean,
Hmm.
like by the rankings, right? The traditional
Right.
rankings.
Right.
And so it doesn't ring as strong of a message to be like, oh yeah, well I disrupted there versus I disrupted in a school district that's now one of the fastest growing school districts in the state of Delaware.
Hmm. I think that's a, I don't want to call it like a lethal combination, but that's an innovative combination when you do have leadership that has a North Star, that if that North Star basically, especially, and I like it, he said K through, I say K through Gray, and he was like, wait, what is that? But like starting students off at kindergarten in our traditional system, talking about like career readiness, like what does this look like, and embedding that into everything. I think that when you have that North Star, if you will, that viable post-secondary, what is your plan? And that's what we're looking at. And that plan um, can be college, and college doesn't look like 4 year, right? Like you have this, but also the skill sets, and you put that through, and you have that with the leadership team, and you have, the other quote that he said was invest in your best, and you have great innovative educators. You're going to have, and I think this is coming sooner than later when you have the full package under one district's system, whatever, where we're going to start to see that happening more and more. I think both of those things lifting in working with youth on almost a personable level while you're moving forward in a space where you are assigning and looking at skill sets and growing their skill sets while giving people experiences, and everybody through this, um, is something that we're going to see. That's what I love. The thing is, I think in education, one of the things that a lot of people will do is they will focus on what they can't do, right?
Mm.
And you hear it all the time in education. Well, we can't do this and we can't do that. I think all of the people we've talked with here on the podcast, well, here's what we are doing. Here's what we can do. Even if it's not optimal in the box that we're in, we can do this and we can change some things. As an English teacher, he talked about creating resumes with students and writing cover letters and those types of things. I think every like there it's low hanging fruit, as my colleague at Naperville calls it, all the time. It makes sense. And when you have that profile of a graduate or whatever you want to call it, and you're creating everything towards that, then the transition of whatever a GPA and all that looks like starts to become the whole human walking out of that school in a K through 12 district and seeing that there's a pathway that is viable. I'll keep going back to viable. And that just really resonated because it's one of the things that we say in our school that we always talk about is how can we make this better for the kid, right? How can we make this better for, and some people call them clients, students, or whatever. How can we make this better for the student? And when you say that, it's not for the top tier, quote unquote, and I'm using that like, systematically, that's what the system was built for. I don't mean that individual students. If this is a kid that the system is broken and does not work for, how can we still make it better for that young person to create a future that they're going to thrive in and even enjoy and dig into and really become creative in their life? I don't know.
I mean, I think the opportunity is really in um, equipping teachers and school leaders for career exploration. Like it can't fall on the shoulders of one to a couple school counselors. There's usually one, if there's even one college and career counselor. Like if you have a school of 1,000 students, I don't care if you have a school of 100 students,
Hmm.
what like you need to equip all of your people
Yeah.
with how to help students make a plan for beyond the walls of high school.
Yeah.
I could see that transforming so many conversations and helping students really find their next step with a viable plan. I I wouldn't have known other I mean there's even in doing the podcast for the amount of time that we've been doing it, like 2.5 years, I've learned about so many new pathways
Yeah.
that like not only can a student experience in high school, but post-secondary, and it's like exciting. But I don't want to be a gatekeeper on this. Like I want more people to hear about, which is why we podcast and do this type of work. But it's like we need more people to have these conversations. And his part about like school leaders needing coaches, like, you know, teachers need coaches, right? Like in if not in a way that is putting on more work, but to equip them for what is the real purpose of school,
Hmm.
right? Like if we don't know or are not clear about why we are here, that's going back to Scott Carr. You
Hmm.
cannot move forward, right? And if it's really making sure every student has a viable plan, to me that sounds so much better than a transcript with English 9 B minus,
Hmm.
English 10 C plus, English 11 A whatever. Like I let's get real. What if it said like all of these experiences a student had and like what
Hmm.
they did? I know that you have shared Spike View, and there are
Hmm.
so many ways to showcase durable skills and experiences beyond just test grades and numbers on a piece of paper that we
Right.
can really elevate kids. But then I think the next step is like if we're gonna change culture, like teachers have to be equipped, because I wouldn't have felt equipped to do the type of work that TJ's talking about, like outside of the science arena,
Right.
right?
Right.
the more experience I had teaching, certainly I got a wider perspective, and like, my worldview and career view obviously grew.
Hmm.
But, you know, if they're getting exposure now, right? It's going to have a ripple effect. So 10,
Hmm.
20 years from now, all those kids had these experiences. Now they're bringing that back into the school system, and they already know how to
Yeah.
develop students for that next step. So it like, if we really invest in this idea now, it can, I believe it can and would completely disrupt education.
And along with that, you're exactly right. I really like the CTE is SEL, right? Social emotional learning is SEL, is CTE. And for example, so one of the things that we had to have a conversation with, students have to get into our program, and um, it's not equitable. I mean, I don't think anything is there's a lot of challenges, and I'm not gonna like sit up here and say, okay, our internship program is perfect. It's not. We're developing it, we're building it, we're trying though, right? The old Seth Godin, like TJ was talking about. I think one of the things though where we start to had to have conversations earlier is we were talking with one student who was looking to look to sign up for the program. And, we looked into that person's history. We look at yeah, grades are somewhat of an indicator, but in certain courses, like we have entrepreneurship courses and things like that. And then there's a lot like the attendance pieces and things like that. And that's a conversation, and it's not an easy conversation. My point is, I think we're beyond the all right, you know what? The pandemic hit. We need to be very sensitive, blah, blah, blah. I get that, and I don't want to come off like hard ass here, but I think real conversations with support behind them and understanding the why and how we want to make people or help people become the best that they are is something that we're going to see on the rise. I mean, for a while there, after we documented it after like 2020 happened, and it was like, all right, so we've got to recover. There's some trauma and everything here. I get that. However, what happened with that young man is like that person had he had a pretty interesting attendance piece, right? He wasn't there all the time. And we legitimately said, you know what? These are red flags. And I'm not saying that because I don't, because I'm making an assumption here. That's the data that we're getting. So if you saw something like this, what would you say? And the young guy, he took it and he was like, I know, and I'm actually realizing, that this is the importance and this is the reason why I want to get into this program. And now I start to realize, there are things that I have done that probably didn't set me up for success. So you can't just say no, right? But that was a hard conversation. You have to tell somebody that, you know what, your attendance record, we didn't say it like this, but your attendance record sucks. And you go out there in the world, they're going to be like, no way. So, to have these conversations earlier with students, in real conversations, that was an off-camera conversation that TJ was having with us. And it's not like we shouldn't lie to kids. Like we need to be upfront with them, but also be empathetic while we're doing it. We're like, yeah, I get it. Like I cheated in my math course in high school. Good. What are you going to learn from this and how are we going to take this forward? Because I want the best for you because I believe in you. Those are the kind of conversations that are extremely powerful. And to your point, like these real conversations and it creates real change. It's not like, all right, well, let's just, pass that off and let this kid do A, B, and C, and then just try to get the GPA up, right? Those conversations are over now. And I think that we have a great opportunity to have to me, that's a newer problem that TJ was saying. He's like, I like new problems. And I think that is a new problem. I think we need to have these tough conversations. We don't need to we need to celebrate failures more and really like, but be real about them. Like not say, yeah, you failed. But so I think that all goes back all the way to Jen Sharp saying be lazy, meaning you don't have to try to come up with solutions for kids. Tell them where they are, tell them what's what the world sees and let them come up with the solution. I don't know, that's
I
being
love
lazy to me,
that.
isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think there really is this opportunity to, you know, to change the gatekeeping,
Mhm.
that the tracking, um, and help students see the safe space that schools can be to fail.
Right.
I think I would always tell students, I'd be like, look, in high school, you cheat, the repercussions, you might fail the assignment, the test, the class, but this is really one of the last places you can quote unquote fail, and the repercussions are pretty minimal. Like
Right.
you're not going to get kicked out of school, most
Hmm.
likely. I mean, it depends on the school, of course. But people are going to work with you. They're going to want to help you like learn and grow. The stakes at college are a bit higher. I personally have known people who've gotten kicked out of college for cheating, for making decisions that weren't the best decisions. And then, like, if you're in the workforce or out in the real world and you're cutting corners or whatnot, the repercussions can be even more significant, like jail time. And or some kind of, getting fired, nothing good, probably,
Right. Yeah.
whatever it is. So, we definitely mention this on the podcast, but it's like a different layer of failure, like, okay, you have failed.
Hmm.
Let's just put it out on the table. Like, you haven't been engaging, your attendance record is poor, the data, the metrics that we have are showing us, and traditionally that you would be successful at this course or this program. But why are you even applying if you didn't meet the criteria?
Hmm.
Like, yes, it's not like a fun conversation, but how can schools slow down and, so to speak, and focus more on those conversations than what the test like looks like? And
Right.
I like that TJ talked about PLCs. I mean, that in itself is a hot topic because any educator I know has feelings, deep emotional feelings about the phrase PLC,
Hmm.
professional learning community. And he very astutely mentioned that the PLCs that he wanted in his school were discussing data and every single student.
Hmm. Hmm.
I know that I was never in a PLC that talked about every single student.
Right.
I can't imagine what that would look like and how that would feel. Like I was like excited about, man, I wish I had had that experience with PLCs.
Right.
I had some working PLCs. I've gone to PLC trainings and conferences that are all about effective professional learning communities. And like this is where I think, right, maybe teachers and teacher groups need coaches. He talked about it at the school leader level, but
Hmm.
I think teachers need coaches in order to maybe get groups of people back on the right page about professional learning and how to kind of just go back to the basics and reach every kid. But it's not reaching every kid, I think, the way has been modeled to me and you. It's more of these types of conversations and like, how do we make a plan? Make a plan even in high school to then get you to a plan after high school.
Right.
For all my planners out there, myself included, that's why I'm telling you, I feel like encouraged,
Yeah.
because if you are a planner and you just listen to this podcast from TJ, you should be like, yes, yes, these are all my skill sets. I can do this.
It's yeah, and I really I love that because I'm sort of a planner. But I think to your point, yeah, a lot of things when we talk about here is like innovative, and you just have to be a crazy person to be like, you just gotta try this and it floats in the wind. No, that's what I loved about that last discussion, and you should feel good as a planner because there is so much power in a plan and creating something. I need that. And on the team that I'm on, I am not the planner. However, we work well together, you know. And I think in a true PLC, like you're saying, that is where those things really work. And my favorite PLCs that I've worked in, where we have taken whatever the admin is giving us, and sometimes you got to check the box there. Inside of that, we have had conversations about groups of students and what to do here and what to do there. And those are my favorite because like TJ and you were saying here, you are like everybody is getting an opportunity. I think one of the things that we don't look at though is the students. We always start with the students who are struggling, right? Because we want to, but what makes a student succeed? Right? And do we ever have those conversations as well? I think those are different ways of looking at things. And there're just so many different ways as an educator where you can take it and you can just start small, start right in your classroom. Have these you can create a PLC in your class. Like you can have a PLC day and you know the community is actually your students. I mean, I've done that when at the end of courses or during a course where we're rewriting this course and we really want you to figure it out, you know, even though we have units that we have to go through XYZ. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. The other piece is bringing outside people in, and our next guest is actually going to talk about this. Pretty amazing stuff, but like letting students like put their skill set in front of the community, and the community will gravitate towards good stuff and maybe not gravitate towards stuff that is struggling, yet you're still in that school space where you can unpack it and help people in that transition on their way to the viable post-secondary plan. So I'm really excited about our next guest as well. TJ did an amazing job. 6 books. He's got 2 more. I can't. How long did we talk after that podcast? We must have talked for a good like another 20 minutes or so. Um,
A while. We could
yeah,
have kept talking. He's just busy. But yeah, he gave his cell phone out on the podcast. So
yeah,
you're gonna have to listen to the end to get it and why he gave it out.
yep,
But you know, what a like amazing resource and human to
yeah,
connect with who is, man, deep in the work and I believe is completely setting fire to education in all the
right,
right ways
yeah,
and wants to disrupt and wants, he doesn't necessarily word it that way, but you know, he is so deeply changing education and trying to bring disparate pieces together and
hmm
using, you know, I mean, he did the work. He did the work. He put his head down. He did the work. He has all this experience, and it's for a reason, so that he can
hmm
do the work that he's doing now and really, I think, make waves across. I mean, I don't remember how many countries it was, but and how many
70,
states.
over 70. We're
But
gonna have to go international. We need to talk to more international people. How about
I
that?
know. Yes, what a great series
He's
that
a
we
real,
are.
I mean, he's a realist, right? I mean, he is going to tell you how it is. And that's what, like, right away when we had our first conversation in the middle of, you know, I handed him the Disrupt Education card and he's like, "Oh, I like this. We need to talk." I'm like, bingo. So, yeah, do reach out to him. Don't call him like in the middle of the night, you know. Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's got like his phone on silence. But yeah, look him up on LinkedIn. Check out his books. He really does have a book for everything out there. And, you know, he's very passionate about writing. Great guest. Yeah, our next guest is going to be amazing. Yeah, this there's so much energy. We are burning it down in 25. So I'm excited about it. So anyway, we're gonna wrap up here. But you know, stay tuned. Again, we are connecting. There's a lot that is in play here. 25 is gonna be a year like no other. Not just for us, but I think for a lot of people who we've talked with. And there's so much that we're going to help everybody just disrupt education where they're at. And I'm super excited about it. I know we've talked about it before with our previous guest. We're going to have more guests. So I'm just going to stop there because I'm going to keep rambling because I'm super excited. So,
Like and subscribe, share out the podcast. The movement is building. We
Yep.
want you a part of it. This podcast doesn't happen without our amazing listeners who we love talking to. Reach out, comment, DM us. We're open books. As well, you can find us on LinkedIn.
Yep.
I think you're on TikTok. I'm on Instagram.
Yeah, there's a TikTok out there.
Just come connect with us. Share this with your friends. That the episodes that really resonate. If you're like, where should I start? What should I listen to? Because there's over 350 episodes in the arsenal. You've got plenty to choose from, and we can totally help connect you with your most pressing desires in the space.
100%. That's a great place to wrap it. So for Allie Dahl, I'm Peter Hostrasser. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrasser or Allie Privet.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.